under the power of the evil one. 1 John 5:19. How does Satan attack us? Satan attacks God's program, the church. Satan is an expert counterfeiter. His attacks against the work that God does in this world are often indirect. He crafts attractive alternatives to the gospel and the church, many of them containing a lot of truth, but with just enough error to poison the whole system. If he can get non-Christians to sincerely believe in a seemingly noble cause, a false belief system, or a charitable work, he can convince them that they don't need the gospel at all. If he can get Christians to mix some of his deception...
The house of God in the last days is going to be under reproach. There's going to be shame and disgrace in the house of God. Now, we're not talking about the backslidden, liberal, modern church. I'm not talking about the kind of church in San Francisco called Glide Memorial United Methodist Church that's recently taken the cross down because they said Jesus isn't all of us and we are the cross. It's a church that glorifies homosexuality and abortion, and it is absolute church, an apostate church. I'm not talking about churches where the minister doesn't believe in Christ anymore, doesn't believe in heaven, doesn't believe in hell. I'm not talking about that apostate church, the Metropolitan Community Church, the homosexual denomination. I'm not talking about that church. Folks, some of the worst blasphemy in the world is not coming from atheists. It's coming from the pulpits and the pens of backslidden, ungodly preachers. God is looking for a people who will sorrow and grieve over the reproach that is being fostered on the church of Jesus Christ in these last days. I'm talking about the church that was born at Pentecost. I'm talking about the church that was born in the teaching of the Apostle Paul and the apostles. The church born in the doctrine of the Godhead of Jesus Christ. That church, that born-again church is under attack. That born-again church is suffering reproach. It's been prophesied that in this day of reproach, of shame and disgrace, God is going to raise up a holy remnant who are going to grieve and weep over this defilement. A people to whom the reproach of it has become to them a burden. I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly. God said, I'm going to have a remnant who are not just going to sit idly by while all of these things invade the church. I'm going to have a people that are not going to be satisfied to go their merry way and just ignore what is happening as charlatans and money-mad prophets, false prophets are coming into the house of God and destroying everything in sight. He said, no, I'm going to gather a people who grieve over this. I'm going to have a people who take it as a burden.
We've seen many, many children healed. We've seen midgets grow. We've seen arms and legs that stop growing because of growth cells that stop. I don't make this stuff up. As surely as I'm speaking by the Spirit of God, that is a word for a person right now. That is God penetrating your heart. It's burning on the inside of you, and you need to make a vow of faith of $1,000. Oh, Bob, couldn't you say 25? No! We do it in my church. Forget your church. I'm talking about what God says. And if you want the kind of miracles that are in the Bible, you're going to have to do what God said to do. Satan gave me this mess. I mean, it's a lie of the devil. I shouldn't have said that.
Most beautiful thing on earth is a $100 bill. I hadn't seen a woman as good looking as a $100 bill. There's something about a $100 bill that excites you. The Holy Spirit spoke to me. He said, I can get money to you anywhere you are. I can get money to you anywhere you are. Let me tell you, this $1,000 seed is breaking the shackles. It's breaking the shackles. It's breaking the chains. And to me, $1,000 seed is proof that you have conquered greed.
The truth.
My sister, I know you've been reading the Bible, but as long as we say lay it up, the wicked going to keep it. But God says it's time for us to tell that money, you don't belong to the wicked.
We must overcome our foe, but not fear him. We must become acutely aware of his methods, but not be preoccupied with them. Satan's name reveals his tactics. A good starting point for understanding Satan's schemes is the examination of his names. Number 1. Satan. Satan opposes God's agenda. He works against God's plan. He violates God's character, and he attacks the people of God. He makes it a point to get in the way. The meaning of Satan is adversary. Job 1, verses 6 through 7. One day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." 1 Thessalonians 2:18. For we wanted to come to you. Certainly I, Paul, did again and again, but Satan blocked our way. Number 2, devil. Devil means slanderer or accuser. 1 Peter 5:8 tells us, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour." An example of his schemes will be to say false things about people and ruin their reputations. He loves to stir up false witnesses and juicy gossip in order to discredit a servant of God. Number 3, Lucifer. Lucifer means son of the morning or shining one. Isaiah 14:12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? This means he is not going to come to you transparently ugly and scary, but will appear beautiful and winsome. You'll be attracted to his agenda because he'll dress it up and seduce you with it. Number 4, Beelzebub. Beelzebub means Lord of the Flies. Matthew 12:24. But when the Pharisees heard it, they said, "This fellow doth not cast out devils, but by Beelzebub the prince of the devils." It was a pagan idol that was supposed to protect from swarms of flies. The Jews understood it as the god of filth, which is an appropriate description of Satan. Number 5, Belial. Belial was the name of a false god. 2 Corinthians 6:15. Or what harmony does Christ have with Belial? Or what does a believer share with an unbeliever? Anything Satan can do to divert worship from God and direct it towards himself interests him. Number 6, the evil one. 1 John 5:19. And we know that we are of God, and the whole world lieth in wickedness. The evil one in Greek is the expression for absolute corruption. He will instigate anything he can to corrupt it and make it as evil as feasible. There is evil in the world, and it comes from a wicked, corrupting influence. Number 7, the Tempter. The Tempter will utilize our perfectly good desires and tempt us to fulfill them with artificial processes. That is why all good gifts come from above. 1 Thessalonians 3:5. That is why, when I could bear it no longer, I sent Timothy to find out whether your faith was still strong.
Is your faith still strong? Do you think that you are in such a comfort zone that no one can touch you, but you are fine, you are dandy with the world, you got everything you need? You've been going to church for 25 years, you got your own favourite seat, you got your name engraved on that wooden chair, but it's been there for centuries, the family name. You give enough money, you put your 10% on the plate. You're doing a really, really good job. You're on car park. You're aspiring to be on worship. You are a good servant. Are you? What about that time when you haven't done this for your wife, or you haven't done that for your brother, or you haven't done this for your family? What about that time when the Holy Spirit pricked at your conscience to give more than 10% to someone who really needs it? How about that time where you should have said something to somebody that would possibly ruin their life, but instead you chose the easy way out, the safe option? Hell is real. It's mentioned. Hell is a strong English word, but invokes strong emotions and feelings. In the King James Bible, the word hell appears 55 times and is translated over several Greek works and one Hebrew word. Greek Gina is translated in the New Testament 12 times as hell. That's probably where the jinn comes from, meaning little devil. In actual fact, I used to have a motorbike that was called a jinlum. That also means genie or little devil. 12 times as hell. Hades is translated into English 11 times, and 10 times as hell. 1 as grave. Tartarus is a render only 1 in English as hell. Hebrew, Shiloh. Shiloh is translated in the Old Testament 65 times. 31 times as grave, 31 times as hell, and 3 times as pit. Now there have been words involved, let's ponder on the subject for a few minutes. Are we living in hell right now? Hell is deceptive. Hell is deceptive in the skin, in the flesh. It tells us that we need things. We search for things to relieve our desires. And one of the worst things for that is the first temptation that was first found in the Garden of Eden. First evil that went on human lips has surrounded us for generations. Yes, the Great Flood was real. And yes, it took away some sin of the world. But we were given a choice of free will. And because we have free will, we quite rightly make those choices for ourselves. But when we do, there is always a cost. Have a listen to this before we go into some great tunes for you.
4 stages of sexual sin. Sexual sin is not a new thing in the world today. It is also not a new thing in the church. The way sexual sins are being glorified in the world today, one would think it was a normal thing for everyone to do. It has worsened that if you don't commit these sins, people will look at you like you are weird. You may be thinking they should applaud you for being pure and holy. They will insult you instead and call you names. This is what society has turned into, and it has crept into the church. There is immorality in the Church of Christ today, and people are turning a blind eye to it because they don't want to be seen as too holy. We are accepting these practices in churches today, so much so that people now come to the church and commit these sins with the church members and even church leaders. So today we are going to look at what I would like to call the 4 stages of sexual sin. As we systematically go through these stages, we will be looking at the stages from the perspective of adultery and fornication. We will examine the 4 stages, each of these sins, side by side. What are the stages of sexual sin? Level 1. The eyes. I can confidently say that all fornication and adultery in one way or another begins with the eyes. You need to know that what you focus your eyes on can determine your next minute or the next day or months. Your next move can be dictated by your eyes. Many of us don't know the power of the eyes. We often talk about the tongue. We say the tongue is powerful. We say the mind and the heart are powerful, but we neglect the eyes. The eyes are the light of the body, and what you look at is what your body, your mind, and your brain will work on and work towards. If you spend your time looking at another man or woman lustfully, you will open up the door for the spirit of lust to come in. If you spend your time looking at indecent images of people on the internet, you will open up the door for the spirit of lust to come in. And once the spirit of lust has a stronghold in your life, it won't leave without a fight. Satan never lets go of any stronghold. He won't give up any ground he has gained. This is why so many people struggle with porn secretly for 5, 10, 20, even 30 years. Once Satan has a stronghold, he will not let go. Your eyes are very powerful. They are connected to the brain and the mind. This is what caused David to sin. David woke up from his bed and he went out to the roof of the palace. He saw Bathsheba bathing. The Bible did not just say he looked, but he saw. David looked and saw. He concentrated on the nakedness of Bathsheba. Even if David tried to run from that place, his eyes had seen Bathsheba naked. The brain already registered what he had seen. He concentrated on her. 2 Samuel 11:2, KJV. And it came to pass in an evening tide that David arose from off of the king's house, and from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. After David saw this woman, his mind followed, and it told him the woman is beautiful. If these two are already working hand in hand, the eyes and the mind, sin is already knocking at the door of one's lie. Fornication is already knocking at the door. Adultery is already knocking at the door. Masturbation is already knocking at the door. I want to ask you, what are you watching? What are you looking at? What are you focusing your eyes on? Are you opening the door of lust into your life? Jesus sounded this warning, and you need to listen carefully. Matthew 5:27 through 28, KJV. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. Look, it is not until you have slept with them that you have committed adultery. Immediately after you have started lusting after them, you have committed adultery. The sin of David did not start when he called Bathsheba. It started when he looked at her and thought in him she was beautiful. The second stage is the act. After your eyes have seen, your mind registered it, and your brain stored it, the next is to act accordingly. David went after Bathsheba and slept with her. You see young ones who cannot run from sexual sins. They yield to it easily. They see fornication as a part of life. This is because of what they have been seeing. They now have the opportunity to act. They will never want to waste it. When that immorality has been kept in the heart for a long time, it will come out someday, and that is when they will act it. People are committing adultery, not because they just woke up someday and decided they wanted it. It is just something that had built up in them. Fornication is a common thing now, and people don't even care about the consequences. People don't care about anything that will happen to them anymore. They just don't care about the consequences of their actions. They just want to experience this sinful act. You are a child of God. If others are doing it, it doesn't mean you have to do it. You are not allowed to partake in this evil thing that people are calling pleasure. This is not pleasure. This is the path of destruction. David was punished for that act. You don't want to get punished for this. The punishment for adultery and fornication is heavy, and sexual immorality is heavy. The third stage is the invisible stage. This is the stage people don't see. This is the stage people don't know about. This is the spiritual implications stage. 1 Corinthians 6:16 KJV. What? Know ye not that ye which is joined to a harlot is one body? For two, saith he, shall be one flesh. If you commit adultery or commit fornication, the truth is that you have joined yourself with the person you slept with. The truth about sex is that it makes two people become one. When you sleep with different people, you have shared yourself with the different people you have slept with, and you now share a bond with each and every one of them. Whatever spiritually affects them now has a door into your life. You are now one with that person. You are making a declaration, a public announcement that me and this person are now one. All the spiritual problems this person is going through will be shared with you. Now, you are not carrying your problems alone, but you are carrying the problems of other people too. Look at the lives of people who are fornicating. You may think they are rich. You may think they are living a good life. The truth is that they are carrying other people's challenges. This is why one-night stands are so dangerous. You know nothing about the person or their family history. Most of the time, you don't even know their last name. The two shall become one. These people have joined themselves with many people, and now they are carrying the problems of other people. Have you been doing this before? Look, you will see that you are having some problems, and you don't know how you got them. Things will become so bad for you, and you will not know how it got to that. The truth is that you have taken another person's problems through becoming one flesh. You may not believe, but this is the truth, because you are becoming one with whoever you sleep with. If you have made that mistake, you need to break the bond with prayer. You need to pray earnestly and break the bond between you and that which is bringing problems into your life.
Absolutely. And that is why this cult, this religion of oneness is so dangerous.